Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. This is the kind of thing that would go in a content patch. At least it would if the person that does all my editing and all my graphic stuff for content patch wasn't in the sky at this very moment. That makes it a little bit difficult, so let's just do it this way instead, shall we? Now, I just want to let you know what kind of video you're getting into here. This is a bit of analysis and discussion on the rights and wrongs of brand deals and influencer programs. I will talk a little bit, of course, about the event which has spurred this video on, but I'd like to talk about the wider implications of this, as well as my personal experiences over the last few years when dealing with these kind of influencer programs on YouTube. I personally think that would make a more interesting video, as much as I know you would love a 10-minute rant about how Machinima and Microsoft are being a bunch of dickbags, you know. That's easy. That's really, really easy stuff. You can find that pretty much anywhere right now. Hundreds, thousands of people are making those videos, so I would like to make something a little bit different. It may not be the kind of content that you're looking for, but it's the kind of content that I want to make, so let's get on with it, shall we? There's been a bit of controversy surrounding... a lot of controversy surrounding the revelations that Microsoft has begun an influencer program for the Xbox One, which essentially allows YouTubers to earn a bit of money from saying nice things about the Xbox One. According to this, it came from Machinima, a deal through that particular multi-channel network, saying earn an additional $3 CPM, that's $3 per 1,000 views, by the way, bonus for promoting the Xbox One. It is apparently that easy. This comes from an alleged leaked image of a campaign email that came through the Machinima network. Machinima UK's Twitter account tweeted directly about the program before removing it rather quickly, and the campaign's existence is also confirmed on a site called Pop Tent, which describes itself as a site that connects brand advertisers with talented videographers, which is a rather odd name to say the least, but hey, to produce low-cost, high-quality commercial videos for use online or in television. And that campaign was on there, along with a previous campaign, actually, which had a $1 CPM on it, which, by the way, is an absolutely bloody terrible CPM. It's more of an add-on thing, more so than anything else. If you're getting a $1 CPM for anything, then you're getting your arse ripped off horribly. So you should never be taking anything of the sort. Now, according to this leaked information, to qualify for the campaign and the extra payments, Machinima partners had to post a video including at least 30 seconds of Xbox One game footage that mentioned the Xbox One by name and included the tag XB1M13. Now, to someone that's experienced in the industry, particularly in the new media side of things, they're probably thinking, yeah, this sounds fairly innocuous, it's fine. However, the problem comes twofold in the supposed legal agreement. Again, this is the alleged agreement that was leaked from the Machinima campaign, and it contains two rather unfortunate and nasty components, one of which is not illegal, one of which probably is illegal. Now, the first part of it is you can't say anything negative about the Xbox One, otherwise you will not qualify for the promotion. This refers to Section 3, subsection B2, which states you may not say anything negative or disparaging about Machinima, Xbox One, or any of its games in your campaign video. It should be noted that nowhere in the agreement is the word positive used. It just says you can't be negative. You can be neutral, I would imagine, but you cannot be negative, otherwise you will not qualify for this agreement. Now, the second problem comes in the non-disclosure component. Section 5, confidentiality. You agree to keep confidential at all times all matters relating to this agreement, including without limitation the promotional requirements and the CPM compensation listed above. You understand that you may not post a copy of this agreement, oops, or any terms thereof online or share them with any third party. Now, my legal knowledge is a little rusty. You would have to ask an actual lawyer as to whether or not this applies to even mentioning the fact that the agreement exists. It seems like looking at that non-disclosure component, it does. I mean, think about it. How else could you interpret it? At all times, all matters relating to this agreement, which one would think would include the agreement itself. They also say including without limitation. So I think it's fairly clear that there's no disclosure going on here. Also, I decided to have a look on YouTube and see what was going on with this actual tag itself. It's a little difficult to tell exactly who is taking part in the promotion based on the tag XB1M13 and who is also just using it as part of their rant video about this particular setup. But a lot of this goes back about a month. I see quite a few videos. It's difficult to say exactly whether or not these channels are actually part of Machinima, however. But they all have one thing in common, and that's a complete and total lack of disclosure. Now, here's the problem with doing that. And this really only applies to those in the US. But the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, updated its guidelines for complying with advertising law in the middle of last year, specifically aiming at online advertising and things like these influencer programs. And it very specifically says that if you are being sponsored in some way to make that video, then you need to disclose that information. And therein lies the real, actual legal problem of trying to pull this kind of thing. That's the legal problem, as opposed to the moral problem. Let's break this down, because I think that there will be lines that some people are willing to cross and some people are willing to accept, and they're going to differ from person to person. There are going to be some people that don't like this because it effectively breaks US law, yeah? And that's a pretty damn good reason for not liking it, yeah? Breaking the FTC guidelines, which are of course tied into the law themselves, is a very, very bad idea. The second problem that people are going to have is that the fact that this is sponsored is being hidden from people, and if this was not an example of the Streisand effect in action, wow, I don't know what is. And last but by no means least, some people are going to object to the fact that people are being paid for their opinion in some way. So the first point is perhaps the most important in the grand scheme of things, because it's not legal. You kinda can't do that. And I'm kinda shocked that Machinima's dumb enough to try and conceal it, honestly. As soon as these FTC regulations came out, we actually got a mass email through Polaris. I have no idea if the RPM guys did, but we got a mass email that said, yeah, if you're taking part in any of these brand deals in future, you have to disclose, and here's how you do it. Yeah, they actually gave us guidelines as the best way to do it. Because you know what's not a good idea? Getting sued. Yeah, that's a particularly piss-poor idea. And you probably want to avoid that. Last thing you want to do is bind all of that under NDAs. Non-disclosure agreements are required within this industry, but not for this kind of thing, yeah? It's one thing to say, yeah, we'd like you to keep these sensitive company resources under your hat if you don't mind, don't share them with the world, and quite another to say, yeah, this legal requirement, we're gonna bind you not to fulfill it. There's a weak argument that the inclusion of the tag is some form of disclosure, but considering nobody knew the context of the tag until this whole thing leaked, which was never supposed to happen to begin with, you can safely say that it doesn't satisfy the requirements of that section of the FTC regulations. That's pretty cut and dry. There's no real way to argue that one, so you can just put it to rest and say, look, yeah, they're clearly doing something wrong here. But then we get onto the moral and ethical part of it, and that's where things start to get really murky, because there's two components to it. The first is the non-disclosure, and the second is the fact that this exists in the first place. The non-disclosure, as far as I'm concerned, is unacceptable. Under all circumstances, you should be disclosing this kind of information, because otherwise you are misleading the people who are watching you. You should be going out of your way to tell people about it, and it's something that a lot of us had to learn. A while ago I did a vlog on this particular subject where I described this as an ever-evolving medium, and YouTube personalities kind of being in this place where they didn't actually know what they were. Were they journalists? Were they personalities, spokespeople, celebrities? Who the hell knows? More often than not, they were actually a big mishmash of all of those things and many other things besides. So what are the ethical standards that should be applying to them? What should they be trying to do? What should they say? What shouldn't they say? What deals should they get involved in? What shouldn't they get involved in? It still is very, very difficult. A lot of us had to learn quite rapidly that, yeah, disclosure is the best idea. You take your first deal and you put it out, and then you realize, alright, okay, we should really be telling people that this is a deal and that we're actually being paid for our time here. I was actually extremely happy when this FTC regulation came out from a business standpoint, because it gave me a clear guideline as to how I should present this to my audience. It was actually great, because before that, I really had no idea how to approach it. And now I just have to put this statement that says, yep, there we go, this video is part of a paid promotion for this product and this company. Done. I have fulfilled my requirements under the FTC. Fantastic. I've been honest with my audience, I've done everything above board, and I can continue, I can get paid for my time, do the deal, and get on with it. Nice and simple. Nothing to really worry about there. It also ensures that if a network were to, say, pressure their partners to hide this kind of information, that partner can then come back and say, no, the FTC says that I can't do that, so you've got to let me disclose this. Now, at no point, in my experience, have I ever been told by Polaris or the Game Station, which was what they were called previously, to hide the fact that I've been involved in a deal. And I never would, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. If you feel the need to hide the fact that you're in a deal, then the chances are your deal is dodgy in the first place. You know, why would you hide that? Why wouldn't you just be honest with your audience? If your audience trusts you, they're gonna understand that, yes, you took some extra money to go do a chivalry tournament, for instance. Or you played a game an hour for a stream for a little bit of extra cash because that's what the company wanted you to do. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. Or is there? That's where things get dicey, isn't it? I think that everyone can agree that non-disclosure from both a legal and a moral standpoint is wrong. But for some people, it goes further than that. For some people, it's the idea that money's involved in any way that makes it wrong. The notion that a YouTuber or a blogger or even a television personality could be given money to do something with a product, no matter what that might be, is in their eyes wrong. Now, obviously, from my perspective, I don't believe that it is, but I think that it's got to be carried out in a very particular way, and you have to be extremely careful when you're dealing with content along those lines. Where is the line drawn? Let me throw out a few examples for you, just to demonstrate that this issue is a little more complicated and, as usual, is not black and white the way that people are trying to make it out to be. Okay, example 1. A popular YouTuber is paid to compete in a tournament for a particular game. They post their first-person VOD of the first round, and then the rest of it is put on another channel, edited together with the other competitors, the tournament is played out, and a winner is declared. The tournament exists to raise the profile of the game, and to ensure that it's getting an awful lot of eyeballs on it. Example number 2, a pro athlete is paid to endorse a particular brand of sports shoes. Example number 3, a sports star is paid to endorse a particular brand of ketchup. Example number 4, a YouTube personality who specializes in games coverage is paid to play a role in a short promotional parody for an upcoming movie. Example number 5, a video game personality is paid to present a piece of content about a particular game. Example number 6, a video game personality is paid to represent a game at a trade show such as E3. These are just a tiny fraction of things that actually happen, outside of perhaps the sports star endorsing ketchup, although it wouldn't surprise me in any way if that's actually happened in the past. Promotional deals, endorsements, and all that kind of thing run the gamut from effectively harmless to ridiculously harmful. If we were to throw an absurd example in there, if you want to go absolutely extreme, example number 7, a reviewer is paid to give a high score to a game and review it positively. That's the thing that everyone thinks about immediately when they hear the term promotional or sponsored campaign when it comes to games. That's immediately the assumption that they jump to. And the reality of it is that that doesn't actually happen. I've not heard of a single documented instance of any company being paid to give a positive review to a video game. I have heard of documented examples of things like, say, embargo dates being waived for those reviews which happen to be positive. So it's not a case of saying, well, we're paying you for a positive review. It's a case of, well, if your review, which you've already written, of course, happens to be positive, we'll let you release it a little bit earlier. That's the kind of thing that actually happens. That's a thing that has happened in the past and no doubt will happen again. Admittedly, whenever it does happen, there's usually an awful lot of internal industry controversies surrounding it. There's all sorts of ridiculous stuff that's happened within the games industry, and more often than not, the reviewers that are part of it and the personalities that are a part of it don't like that kind of stuff because it seems incredibly sleazy. They don't want to be involved in it. It's of course not everybody by any stretch of the imagination. But then you look at other stuff, and it gets really complicated. Let's take the example of this campaign. Now, there are two ways of looking at this campaign. The first way is to say, Microsoft are offering money to anyone who will be positive about the Xbox One in a video and promote it. The other way of looking at it is slightly grayer, and that's the notion that if you talk about the Xbox One and its games and you're not negative in a video, then you can earn a bit of extra money. And you might think, hang on a minute, you just said that. That's exactly the same. It's not, though. The problem is, when the money's involved, it gets really murky as to whether or not the money drove the content, or whether or not it was your content and you just happened to get a bit extra for it. And that's where things get really complicated, and more often than not, it's very hard to distinguish between the two, which is why it's very dangerous to ever offer an opinion when money is actually involved. I know that because I've seen it happen, and I've verged on doing it myself. Perhaps a little bit too close in the past. I like to think that I've been very honest with my viewers as to when I've been involved in a promotional event like Chivalry or Limitless, which funnily enough was actually the first brand deal I ever did with TGS. Also stuff like Guns of Icarus and Pacific Rim and so on and so forth. The time when it actually got closest to really being unethical, I think, was with PlanetSide 2. And I don't think I crossed that line, but I could see the line from where I was standing. And I was looking at that line and I was saying, ugh, this is getting a little bit too close to violating ethical standards if I push this any further. Let me tell you the two things that I was paid to be involved with PlanetSide 2 very specifically. Yeah? And I think people don't necessarily know exactly what I was paid for and what I wasn't paid for. The first thing I was paid for was to present the game at E3 and PAX to an audience, yeah? So I was actually being paid for my time hourly to be sitting at that desk, not covering other games, and commentating the game. So I was being paid as a commentator, and in turn also as a representative. So obviously I couldn't crap on the game since I was sitting there at the desk, but I was commentating on it. Yeah. The second thing that I was paid to be involved in was the Ultimate Empire Showdown, which I think I did disclose at the time. In fact, I'm almost certain that I did. And it was also something that three other prominent personalities were involved in. We had C-Nanas, we had Toby Turner, and then we had Level Cap as well, replacing Toby Turner later on in the campaign. Now, that was a promotional event. I think it was obvious to everybody, but I was paid for that. Now, I wasn't giving opinions during that particular thing. In fact, I wasn't giving opinions during any of it, really. But the problem comes when you start to also create other content for that game. And honestly, if someone were to come to me and say, I don't believe your opinion on PlanetSide 2 is entirely your own, I'd be a bit pissed off, but I could understand where they're coming from. Because yes, I accepted money to promote PlanetSide 2 at that time in those two specific instances for those events. That said, I also released a very long video. I think it was the most watched PlanetSide 2 video I ever did, which was actually a criticism of the game, a 35-minute long or so criticism. Funnily enough, SOE were actually very appreciative of that. You might think, oh god, you got paid by this company and then you criticized their game? They would hate you for that. Honestly, no. You'll find that a lot of companies are incredibly understanding of that when it comes to the games industry, as long as you're fair. I was talking to a lot of PR guys at PAX and all sorts of other expos last year, and I actually talked to a few of them for companies where I'd heavily criticized one of their games, and I was a little bit worried. How would this guy actually react to the fact that I'd done that? And every single time, they always said the same thing. And I even brought it up to them. It's like, whoa, well, I didn't like this game that you did. In fact, I criticized it fairly heavily, and I was, a little bit worried at that point and said, yes, you did, but you were being fair, and that's all we really ask of you. The problem we have is when people are unfair, and when they obviously have an agenda going into it. These PR guys are the kind of people that you hang around with at expos and you go and get dinner with or whatever. This happens an awful lot. We know each other within the scene. I think I'm a little bit of an outsider because I'm a YouTuber, but amongst more traditional games journalists, everyone pretty much knows everybody. And it would be a bit awkward if after criticizing a game, suddenly all the PR people were really snarky and nasty to you. That just wouldn't work out. I think PR people do realize when the game isn't all that good, and they just want you to be fair to it. They just want you to be accurate and reflect your own opinion. And we've never been cut off from any PR agency as a result of giving a criticism of a title. It simply never happened. That said, these are the PR guys that are dealing with review copies and games media in some way, okay? They are not the guys organizing these publicity campaigns, these influencer campaigns. That's the term you're going to hear a lot, influencer. The idea is that if you have an audience, then you have influence. And this goes back way before YouTube. The idea of athletics endorsement deals is entirely on the basis of influence, right? Someone says, I endorse this pair of sports shoes. Then people who like that person happen to go out and buy those sports shoes. However, the same person endorses a brand of ketchup, and things are a little bit different. In that case, what you're getting is an endorsement from a popular person, which is absolutely valuable. I mean, that will sell units. However, you're not necessarily getting an informed opinion. It's not like this guy is talking about sports shoes. You'd think that the opinion of a pro athlete in regards to sports shoes would be a pretty accurate one. That's an expert opinion. So that opinion has a lot of value. His opinion on a brand of ketchup, less so, but still effective. And that's where things get even murkier. I know, we're so murky right now you can't even see. Oh, this is the sordid world of influencer programs here. If a game's personality talks about a video game, and they do so of their own accord, nothing wrong with that. If they talk about a video game and there's money involved, that's a little bit different, but what about the actual content of the video? What about the content of the commentary? If I go and do StarCraft, for instance, can I then not criticize Blizzard? I absolutely can. I have criticized Blizzard a lot in the past year and a half, and yet casting StarCraft 2 is actually the thing that I've been professionally paid the most often to do. Yeah? I've gone to an event, I've cast, I've been paid for my time, and I've left that event. And I've done that many, many times now. And honestly, that's a different piece of content, which is why this Xbox influencer thing is a little bit weird. Because if you give an opinion, and that opinion's positive, and there's money involved, then surely that opinion is bought, right? Not necessarily. What if your opinion was positive in the first place? Let's take another example. A YouTube gaming personality has been playing a game for a significant amount of time, and they have produced several videos on it. And as a result, the company that actually makes the game notices this and gets in touch with the personality, and they offer him something, whether it be a monetary reward or whether it be some kind of in-game reward. Couple of examples of stuff that I've received. I've received planet-side decals. I've received an air mech decal because I actually use the referral system there. I think there's even an air mech pilot or something along those lines which is being designed around me. There's an item in that game. There's an item in League of Legends named after me. But what happens if it is monetary? Because I think you can kind of get around the idea of in-game items. Okay, this guy's a big supporter of the game. We're going to recognize that. That's not really a problem. But what about money? Let's say I made 10 videos about Game X, then Game X's developer, after a couple of months, notices what's going on, sees where the traffic's coming from, and says, we would love to give you some money to do another one. You know? And we'd like a video of this, specifically. Maybe it's a new piece of content or whatever. And then you go and do that. Right or wrong? Hard to say. Really hard to say. You already liked the game. It's highly unlikely that you're simply going to dislike it after this one video. They're paying you for your time. You've already proven to the audience that you like the game. But here's the problem. The audience then finds out about this, because hopefully you've disclosed it, and if you haven't, you're a horrible, dishonest human being. And they say, oh, well, did you just like this game in the first place because you were paid for it? That's where you gotta be really, really careful. I think the big difference and the reason why this campaign really rubs me the wrong way versus more traditional brand deals, and I will tell you a few of the brand deals that I've taken and what specifically they required in a moment, is the fact that this is so wide-ranging. It's not for a specific event. You know, you pay someone to go to an event and represent your product. That sounds fine, right? That is actually part of the course. That's something that's been happening for decades. Nothing wrong with that. You pay someone to get involved in a tournament, whether it be as a caster or as a celebrity player. There's nothing really wrong with that either. But then you just say, make any piece of content that is positive about the Xbox One and we'll pay you extra money. That's where things start to be a problem, because then you have people saying, oh, I can just say something nice about the Xbox One and earn a bunch of extra cash, and I don't actually have to be honest with the audience about that. However, and there is always a however, this goes way, way deeper than some people seem to realize. What about the kind of channel that's involved in this? You gotta consider that as well. Let's say Adam Sessler, for instance, you know, very well-respected games journalist, took money to say a bunch of positive things about the Xbox One. Now let's say PewDiePie took money to say a lot of positive things about the Xbox One. Are they both equally at fault? Do they both do equal levels of damage? Is there a level of expectation there? Well, there is a level of expectation. The level of expectation is that as a journalistic outlet, Adam Sessler, as a journalist, should not be taking money for his opinions. As a Let's Player, as a game's personality, PewDiePie can take money for his opinions. There's nothing really wrong with that, because no one really expects him to have particularly strong opinions on anything. That's not what he does. He's an entertainer. But the problem on YouTube is the lines are very blurry. This is something, again, that I talked about in my vlog of yesteryear, last year, in fact, on the subject of selling out. We don't know where we are. We don't know who we are, and we don't know specifically what kind of standards we should be bound to. The fact that this program is doing something wrong should be obvious to everybody. They're violating FTC regulations. They are deliberately hiding the fact that there is some kind of payment going on here. There is an NDA covering that stuff. That is wrong. Straight up wrong. It's actually a very clear-cut situation. But most of these influencer deals are not clear-cut in any way. Let me give you an example of some of the requirements. This is from the contract that I signed for the Chivalry Duel Mode tournament, okay? And it was sponsored, of course, by Torn Banner Studios. Let me read you the section of the contract that tells you exactly what is required here. Okay, Section 6, services to be performed by talent. Talent, by the way, refers to the channels in question. Subsection A, talent shall create one vlog announcing the Duel Mode Chivalry Medieval Warfare Tournament, hereby referred to as the tournament. Talent shall post said vlog on talent channel by X date. Subsection B, talent shall create one POV highlight video, hereby referred to as the video, of talent playing in the tournament to be uploaded on the talent channel by X date and to be maintained on the talent channel through Y date. Incidentally, I believe everyone actually chose to keep that video up, because, you know, why wouldn't we? But this was just a term to make sure that you couldn't post it and then immediately take it down or whatever. Talent shall place a hyperlink, and then it gives you the hyperlink, and this is designed to track stats in the description box of the video to promote the free weekend that Chivalry was doing at the time. Subsection C, talent shall send the audio and video feeds, the TGS, from the video by X date and shall be included in a mashup video to be broadcast from the GameStation channel. Subsection D, talent shall make one Facebook post and one Twitter post from talent's accounts promoting the video on X date. Subsection E, talent shall favorite and like the mashup video on the GameStation channel from talent's account. And then it goes to compensation, X number of dollars, terms of payment within 30 days of receipt of payment by sponsor, and that is pretty much it. Nothing in that agreement talking about being positive, negative, having to say anything, or whatever. A simple promotional event. And honestly, the vast majority of sponsored content on YouTube is that. And in my opinion, that stuff's totally fine. But at the end of the day, I'm biased, because I've taken that money before, and I feel it's okay. I feel it's alright if I disclose that to my viewers. Indeed, here's an example from one of my more recent contracts. This is for the Deadliest Warrior tournament. This is a specific section from the contract given to me by Polaris. Section 2, subsection 2.3. Talent agrees to comply with all applicable laws and regulations concerning advertising and promotional campaigns, including, without limitation, FTC rules and guidelines regarding disclosures of sponsorship and endorsement relationships. I agree to that kind of content because it doesn't involve my opinion in any way, shape, or form, and I turn down anything that is offered in terms of influencing my opinion. But then you might say, well, surely the fact that they've given you money influences your opinion in the first place. And you know what? That is a fair accusation to make. It really all comes down to how much you trust your coverage source. Do you really trust them? Do you believe that the opinions are honest and untainted? If you don't believe that is the case and you are looking for information, you should stop looking in that location. That's something that I think keeps coverage channels fairly honest, but let's be frank here, this is the kind of problem that can affect absolutely any form of media, and has been doing so for hundreds of years, thousands of years. Money is involved, always, always. Do we know that we can trust traditional coverage sites? No, we don't. There's this idea of an ethical code of practice, but they're not actually watched by anyone. There is no standards agency for video game journalism. It doesn't exist. It's not a case of who watches the watchers. There are no watchers in the first place to watch. The only thing that I can really do is to follow my opinion on this kind of content, and to pick the content that I want to do, and ignore the stuff that I don't want to do. Have I been offered money for a positive opinion on a product in the past? Yes. Have I turned it down every single time? Yes. Why have I done that? Because I believe that in the long term, my integrity matters more than that payoff. And that should be the thing which is keeping most, hopefully all people honest in this regard. But then there are channels that don't even consider themselves critics in any way, shape, or form. They don't consider themselves journalists, and they think that that's entirely okay. They can take this kind of money. And I don't think they're wrong, actually. But that comes down to their individual judgment and what their audience actually believes is okay. If you're going specifically for entertainment and only for entertainment, then that entertainment should not be tarnished by this kind of thing in any way. If you're coming for opinions, then damn right it can be tarnished. And if you're a channel, you've got to be ridiculously careful about who you get into bed with. You might be asking, well, TotalBiscuit, why the hell are you making a video on this? I know for a fact, because you just told me that you've been involved in brand deals of some description in the past, even though they aren't anything like that. Why would you even mention it and put yourself in the crosshairs? Well, honestly, I think it's good that this has come out, because we need to shine a light on it. It's the same reason why I was really glad that the FTC actually came out and said, look, you've got to disclose this stuff, because it makes things a hell of a lot simpler. You should never, ever, 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 ever be dishonest to your viewers. Simple as that. It should never, ever happen. You should be able to explain to your audience in a clear, concise, and honest fashion exactly why a company is giving you a sack of cash to do X. And if you can't explain that adequately, and you can't explain that in a way that your audience understands, maybe you shouldn't have taken the money in the first place. If you as a channel genuinely believe you've done nothing wrong, then what the hell are you afraid of? You don't believe you've done anything wrong. You can clearly explain that. If you believe that in your heart, you can explain that to anybody, and they will believe you. There's already a bunch of stuff that's been going on. It's been going on for years, yeah? Before any of this even started, before even YouTube started, the accusations of paid-off review have been around forever, you know, in every form of media. Specifically, if we look at video games, that accusation pops up all the damn time. It's kind of annoying, really, in some instances. In particular, with Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, a game which I gave my Game of the Year, and I still believe is actually the best game I've ever played to date. Because some other channel was involved in an influencer program for some Summer of Arcade games, myself, who made a video months after this of the PC version, which wasn't even published by Microsoft in any way, it was published by 505 and made by Starbreeze, got called out as a sellout for that kind of thing. And this is the problem when you have that degree of influencer going on. And yet again, we see this same thing coming out of Microsoft. It doesn't seem like Microsoft really gets it. I want to say the indies get it. Indies don't come along and offer me money for my opinion. Indies do creative stuff. Indies do stuff like the Chivalry Tournament and like Guns of Icarus. I can't speak for other networks because I'm not involved in their brand deals or their promotional events, but frankly, this just stinks of a lack of creativity and a lack of respect for the consumer. There is an acceptable place where you can take money to do stuff like this. And it varies on a channel-by-channel basis and a game-by-game basis and what exactly the content involves. This is not an acceptable place. This is paying money for positivity. This is paying money for promotion. Promotion is fine, but when it involves your opinions, that's where things start to get really murky. Microsoft and Machinima buggered this up royally. They really did. Attempting to hide things is a terrible idea. Attempting to lie to people, even just by omission, is a horrible idea. Do not do it. Never do it. If you have to lie about something, that means it probably wasn't very good in the first place. As a consumer, please do be vigilant. Please do be careful about the channels you take opinions from. Do bear in mind that even if a channel produces pure entertainment, they can be used as a marketing conduit to you directly. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You're marketed to a lot. I know a lot of people have a massive aversion to it, but it's not necessarily that bad. You are being shown pretty cool stuff most of the time, if the marketing is properly effective. When we try and sell you Pacific Rim, it's because we think it's a really cool robot movie. So we made a parody about it, and we got one of the actors from the movie, and Guillermo del Toro was in the monster suit. I mean, how fucking cool is that, right? That's where the content is at its best. That's where things intersect to make something entertaining, but also effective when it comes to marketing. It's this shady influencer nonsense that I really don't like. Do be vigilant. Do feel free to ask questions, and if you're a content creator, play by the goddamn rules. Even if you're not in a country that says you have to disclose this stuff, this FTC guideline is pretty good. Disclose to your audience, and if you don't feel like you can, your deal's rotten. You shouldn't be involved in it in the first place. Oh, I could ramble on about this for hours, but it's already been far too long as it is. Not exactly concise. Not exactly my strong point. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, folks. And I'll see you next time.